Health and fitness requires more than just the physical work. It starts with the work you put in to grow your mind. Welcome to the Mind Gains podcast, where we discuss what it takes mentally to see results physically. I'm your host, Jess. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Mind Gains podcast. I could not be happier that you're listening because I have an extremely important message to get out today to everyone. I don't care who you are. This message is for everyone. As a health and fitness coach, I am having this conversation regularly, and I know that that is never going to go away, and that's fine. But this is one that people need to be constantly talked off the ledge with. And that's going to be the scale, what the scale is doing on a daily and on a weekly basis. The fluctuations that happen, the why isn't the scale moving down when I'm trying to lose weight? It's constant. And I get it. I really do. But we need to understand that the scale only tells a part of the story. It tells a very small part of the story, actually. But it's given this platform to be like the one and only thing that we all care about for some reason, just chasing a certain number and constantly trying to be the smallest version of ourselves. And it's a bunch of bull because the scale isn't even all that accurate. And let me tell you why. First off, it's only taking a look at your weight. It does not see what that weight is made up of, aka how much body fat you have versus muscle mass. And what your body is made up of, your body composition, is what determines what you look like, whether you look fit or you look a little fluffy. You can have two people who weigh the same exact amount, one of them having a higher fat content and one of them having a higher muscle mass content, and they are going to look entirely different, like night and day different. You look at the person whose body composition is more fat and they're going to look overweight. You look at the person whose body composition is more muscle mass, and they're going to probably look fit, strong, lean, defined, yet they weigh exactly the same. This is not because muscle weighs more than fat. It's just that the body fat takes up a lot more space than the muscle mass does. Muscle mass is just a lot more compact than fat is. And yes, they do sell scales that show a breakdown of your body composition, but they're usually not the most accurate. I'm not against them at all. I would just use it more to keep track of trends happening over time with seeing body fat percentage decrease or muscle mass increase rather than looking at the actual numbers it gives me. I wouldn't just see that it says that, you're at 23% body fat and take that at face value because it probably really is not that accurate. The scale also fluctuates so much, it's not even funny. Running through some of the things that affect what the scale says, how much you slept the night before, or if you didn't have the best sleep quality, how much water you drank the previous day, how much salt you've consumed, if you ate close to bedtime or you had a larger meal later in the day. If you're a female, what phase of your cycle are you in? Hormonal fluctuations, when the last time you went to the bathroom was. So many things affect this. And I am not at all against the scale. That is not at all what this episode about. It's not, like breaking up with your scale, throw it away, never use it. I personally step on mine every single day, but it's used as a reference point, and it is not what determines my mood, my feelings, and how I feel about myself for that day. Why? Because the scale only tells part of the story. It is not the end-all be-all, and it most certainly does not determine my value and the way that I see myself. You have to actively work to remove any emotional ties to that number on the scale. And the best way to do that is by understanding how to measure progress outside of it. Because there is an abundance of other markers and signs of progress that matter way more than a dumb number does. They have a lot more value to us. And if that's true, then we need to stop viewing the scale as the thing that's either going to make us happy today, if it happens to be down a little bit, or make us feel really disappointed, insecure, and unhappy with ourselves. And let me just stop here real quick to say that if you are someone who's chasing a number you used to see years ago when you were in high school, college, before you had a baby, whatever, please stop. You cannot chase an old number and refuse to be happy until you're back down to that very specific number. What if you've been working hard, putting on muscle mass, and losing some body fat? You're probably not going to see the same number on the scale that you did when you were in high school, thin as a rail, not fully developed yet. Whatever it is, please stop chasing a specific number that you used to be. And what I honestly find really funny is the fact that most people I talk to say that they want to build muscle and look fit, but they also want to weigh like 110 pounds, like they did 5 years ago when they had zero muscle mass on them and they were just kind of skinny. Those two things do not line up, especially if you're someone who wants to build even just a little bit of muscle. The scale is going to be higher than you think it will be or you think it should be. That muscle that you want to put on weighs something. So instead of chasing a very specific number, why don't we just start chasing taking care of ourselves and getting stronger in the gym and lifting heavier and eating properly? Because when you do that and you do it correctly and you do it in alignment with whatever your goals are, you're going to be working towards the physique you want. And if you look the way that you want to, who the heck cares about what the scale says? Why are we giving it so much power to rule over our thoughts and our emotions to the point that if it is up just even a teeny tiny bit, we are now considering cutting our calories the next day or skipping a meal or heck, even fasting the entire day to make up for the increase on the scale, which, newsflash, it doesn't even work that way. That's some disordered behavior, and we are not here for that. That is not the purpose of anything we're trying to do. We are trying to build a healthy and a sustainable lifestyle, not punish ourselves when the scale has a very normal fluctuation up. We have to remove the emotional ties we have to the scale, and that is a very conscious decision that you have to make before stepping on it. Because I know this is hard. We've all experienced being tied to the scale, but you have to decide to put a stop to that. You have to make a choice that no matter what the scale says today, it is still a good day, that you're still proud of the work that you're putting in and how far you've come. And then you need to look at all the other signs of progress you're seeing. Because I promise you, if you're doing it correctly and you've done it long enough and consistently enough, those signs will be there. So I want to go over what those other signs are so that you can start noticing them and celebrating the progress that you are seeing, even if the scale isn't budging. Because I'm going to tell you right here, right now, that if you are just focused on what the scale is doing every day, you're going to be left feeling pretty disappointed, even if you're doing everything exactly right. Because losing weight is not linear. Gaining muscle is not linear. Progress in general, really in any capacity and in any area of life, is not linear. Even if you're doing everything perfectly in your calorie deficit and you're losing fat, the scale will not be consistently down every single day of every single week. It will fluctuate. It will. There is no doubt about that. So instead of just being focused on that number, let's focus on all the other indicators of our progress. Number one, increased performance, whether that's strength or endurance or both. What wins are you having in the gym? Has your strength improved? Are you able to lift heavier or lift for more reps? Are you hitting PRs? Are you jumping back into your sets quicker than you were before, not needing as much rest in between them? These are huge signs of progress. It's showing that your body is adapting and it's getting stronger. It's getting better at being able to handle heavy loads. Your endurance is improving if you don't need as much rest anymore, or if you're able to complete a longer workout. You're there for a full hour instead of 30 or 45 minutes. You're able to complete 12 reps when last week you could only do 10. You can complete longer cardio sessions. Maybe you're doing 20 minutes of cardio, whereas you were dying after 15 minutes a few weeks ago. And if you're not tracking your workouts, meaning that you're not keeping a record of what your sets, reps, and rest times look like for each exercise every single week, you're not going to be noticing these improvements as much. You have to keep track of this kind of data and start seeing those improvements week by week as wins, because they are. And when I say this, I'm also talking about improved performance just in your everyday life. If you're able to now carry that big pack of water bottles into the house from your car when you used to struggle with that, you're seeing progress. If you're able to move your couch so that you can clean and vacuum under there all on your own now when you used to have to ask for help, you're seeing improved strength and progress in your everyday life. If you can run around and play with your kids now when you used to have to tell them you're sorry, you just can't keep up with them and they're going to have to leave you behind, you're seeing progress. And this is what it's all about: health, longevity, quality of life, and being as unlimited as possible in your movements and in your strength. Another sign of progress, and honestly, one of the biggest ones in my opinion, is increased energy. If you're finding that you don't have energy crashes, or you don't need as much caffeine to get you through the day, or even if you're just having an easier time waking up in the mornings and not feeling so groggy, huge indicator of progress. When you have improved energy, you're functioning better, your mood is better, you just feel better. You're happier, you're not picking as many fights with your husband because you're not cranky. And that is the point of what we're doing. It is to feel our absolute best. Another thing, better cognitive function. The ability to be able to think and focus clearly. This one is especially important if you're someone who has been severely under eating. You're a chronic dieter, you've had tendencies to restrict your intake and overdo your exercise. When we overwork and underfuel ourselves, our ability to think properly tanks. And I think it's pretty obvious why. How can we expect our body and our mind to optimally function when we are refusing to give it the essentials it needs in order to do that? Again, I always go back to the car. That's like refusing to gas up your car when it's on E and it's screaming at you that you need to put some gas in it, and then being confused why the car isn't performing like it should. If you're overdoing your training and you're under eating, your body is going to slowly start shutting things down. And cognitive function is one of the first things to go. So if you start noticing that you're not having issues with staying focused and alert, and you're able to think better, your memory and ability to recall things is getting better, you're seeing progress. Another indicator, if you're starting to enjoy the process and enjoy the actions that allow you to be the healthiest version of you. Because when we first start out, not a lot of people actually enjoy going to the gym or drinking their water or sleeping more or prioritizing movement outside of the gym. We just do it because we know they're things that just need to get done. But after a while, if you start noticing that any or all of these things are becoming more habitual, maybe you don't have to think about drinking your water as much throughout the day because it's become more of a habit for you. Or if you're even starting to enjoy drinking more water because you know it's what makes you feel your best, there's your progress. You're making progress with implementing the actions necessary into your daily life. These healthy habits are becoming things that you just do every day, and they're getting easier to accomplish. If you're noticing you're able to handle life stressors better, guess what that is? A sign of progress. Because once you start taking care of yourself, you become better equipped to handle the stressors that arise, not only mentally, but physiologically as well. When your body is functioning optimally and it's firing on all cylinders, it's better able to handle stress. You become more confident in your abilities and you know you're going to be able to face whatever the stressor is and handle it well. Because the fact of the matter is that when you start pushing yourself to become a better version of you by getting to the gym, eating well, taking care of yourself, you're going to start pushing yourself in every other area as well. If you're grinding it out in the gym, following through on your promises, and showing up there even when you don't want to, you're challenging yourself to be there and to lift heavier and to see what your limit is, you will apply that same approach to the daily stressors and challenges that come up in your life. Another sign that you're making progress is improvements in your sleep. If you're pushing yourself in the gym, staying active throughout the day, and working hard, you're going to feel tired at night. I mean, if you're not really moving your body throughout the day, we can't expect them to feel tired and ready for rest at night because your body has basically been at rest all day long. The human body was made to move a lot more than most of them do on a daily basis. And if you had a day full of hard work in the gym and movement throughout the day, your body is going to be more than good with shutting things down for the night to get some good quality rest. It needs it. You've physically and mentally worked hard that day. Whereas if you sat down all day, staring at a computer screen for 10 hours straight, and then you sat down on the couch and watched TV for another couple hours, and then you laid down in bed to scroll on your phone for a while, your mind is going to be very overstimulated by a screen, and your body is going to be very understimulated because it barely moved all day long. And you're probably not going to be able to rest very well because what are you resting from? But if you're beginning to notice that you're able to sleep throughout the night and your sleep quality has improved, there we have some progress. Next up, clothes are fitting better. This is like the biggest telltale sign that what you're doing is working. This should mean a lot more to you than a number on the scale. If your goal is to be leaner, decrease your overall body fat, and increase your muscle mass, your clothes are probably going to start fitting better, even though the scale might stay exactly the same. This is called body recomposition. Going back to what I said before about two people who can weigh exactly the same but look completely different, it's because of what their body composition is made up of. And you can entirely change your body comp, and the scale can really not move much at all, but you will be looking like a whole new person. So if you start noticing that your pants are fitting a little loose and they just zip right up instead of struggling and having to kind of like suck your stomach in to get them to zip, this is a huge win. Or vice versa. If you're trying to build some muscle, you're trying to grow your legs, your glutes, you might start noticing your pants are going to fit a little tighter. And before you start freaking out that you can't fit into your old clothes anymore because they're too small, this is a positive thing, depending on what your goal is. If your goal is to grow your legs, those quads, those glutes and hamstrings are going to take up more space if you're growing them. So the pair of jeans you've been wearing since college probably aren't going to fit you anymore. This is a great sign that you are building up your legs, which is exactly what you are trying to do. And not only that, but when you're trying to build anything, the scale is going to go up. It has to. This is a good thing because if the scale isn't going up when you're trying to build muscle outside of a body recomposition, I hate to tell you, but you're not building muscle. So when building is your goal, seeing the scale go up is a good thing. It means that the work you're putting in is working. Let's think about it this way. Imagine you woke up tomorrow morning with your dream physique. You would be ecstatic. You would be so happy that you have as much muscle mass on you or you're as lean and defined as you want it to be, right? But then you step on the scale and it says that you weigh 135 pounds when you wanted to be 120 pounds. What would you do? Would that completely erase how you felt when you first woke up and saw you looked exactly the way you wanted to? Would you be upset now and freak out because even though you are super happy with the way you look, you're 15 pounds heavier than you thought you wanted to be, and that's the most important thing? Would you start looking to decrease your intake and do endless cardio to get back down to 120 pounds and lose the muscle mass you woke up with because the scale says different numbers than you thought you wanted? How silly would that be? Doesn't that number seem so insignificant if you look the way you want to? We have to get it out of our heads that the scale constantly needs to say a lower number. Depending on your goal, it doesn't. Because maybe your physique at that 135 pounds looks and feels and moves exactly the way you always wanted it to. Maybe if you had no idea what you weighed with either of those physiques, you would be extremely satisfied and content with your body at 135 pounds, over your body at 120 pounds that you would choose the heavier one if you had no idea what either of them weighed and you were just going based off of how you look and how you feel. But if you cannot stop obsessing over a random number and constantly trying to be the smallest version of yourself, you're never going to get out of your own way and be truly happy with the body you've built. Progress photos are another fantastic way to keep track of your progress over time. When you're taking progress photos, you want to make sure you take them on a weekly basis, first thing in the morning, after you've gone to the bathroom, and before you've had anything to eat or drink. You want to try and stay in the same or very similar outfits, usually underwear and a sports bra or a bathing suit would be best, and try to get the same lighting if you can. And when you're comparing your pictures, don't compare week to week. You're not going to see much of a difference in that short of a time frame. Not much is happening in a 7-day span. So you always want to go back to your first picture and compare that one with your most recent one. And after about 6-ish, maybe 8 weeks, you should start seeing some changes in those pictures. Let me be clear though. This should start happening within 6 to 8 weeks of being very consistent with everything that you need to be. If you're not being consistent, forget it. But if you're doing what you need to be doing, you should start noticing some changes around this time frame. So keep progress photos and use those as your signs of progress more than the scale, because you can see a huge difference in these photos, but the scale may stay the exact same. The last and most important marker of progress is going to be what your relationship with food looks like. We all have a relationship with food, whether we realize it or not. And we can view food in a great light and see it as the energy that it is for our body and something to be optimized and enjoyed. Or we can view it as the enemy, restricted, and label certain foods as good or bad. But when you do that and you start saying, I can't have that, I have to stay away from carbs, I shouldn't eat dessert, you are subconsciously making it harder on yourself because we all want what we can't have. The second you tell yourself that you can't have something, it's going to be all you think about because for some reason, things being off limits to us makes us want it even more. And the truth is that you can have those things. Nothing is off limits. And this is why it drives me nuts when someone asks me if I can eat a certain type of food. If I'm out with others and there's foods there that I include more in moderation, and I get asked if I'm allowed to have it. What? Am I allowed to have pizza? Who the heck is stopping me? We are allowed to have anything we want, but it's up to us as individuals to find a sustainable balance that works for us to be able to include anything we want in moderation and still reach our goals. It's just like the second you're okay with making some sacrifices for a goal you have, everyone takes that to mean that you don't eat anything that doesn't fall under their definition of healthy. And I'm using air quotes because it's subjective. But, anyways, I know I got a little off track. You need to build a really solid, healthy relationship with food so that your thoughts are not consumed by it and you're able to just be present and enjoy your time with the people that you're with when you're together for a holiday or a celebration or whatever it is. And you're not there stressing over what and how much you're going to eat. The point of everything I talk about is for you to live your healthiest life. And I want all of us to enjoy food, not fear it at all, and have a strong relationship with it so we don't feel like it controls us. So, signs of progress in this area might be that you're allowing yourself to eat foods that were completely off limits to you in the past. Or maybe you're eating more food than you ever have before. You don't feel fear around it. You feel in control with your food choices, and you don't stress when you do occasionally eat more than normal or don't hit your macros. Or maybe you have your hunger and fullness cues again. And yes, we should all be having these. If you're not, that is a sign that something is not working properly internally. Your hormones are not signaling correctly if you don't have hunger and fullness cues. Maybe you feel comfortable in your calorie deficit, in your fat loss phase, and you don't feel like you have to restrict yourself or completely cut out certain types of foods, or you're not falling into binge restricting cycles. If you're noticing you don't freak out over last minute dinner plans that pop up and you just feel comfortable around food when you didn't in the past, you win. This right here should be the biggest marker of progress for you. And your relationship with food, what your balance looks like for you, is going to be different for everyone. But finding what your balance is should be your top priority in anything you do in health and fitness, because everything revolves around this. Knowing that you can go into any situation or event and not worry about what you're going to eat, or knowing that you can enjoy the foods that are there if you want them, and then proceed like normal the remainder of the day or the following day, not feeling like you should be under eating or adding in cardio to make up for it, should be priority number one for all of us. So if you're noticing improvements in your relationship with food, this is the best sign of progress. So, regardless of whatever the heck the scale says, if you can see improvements in any or in all of these areas, congratulations. What you're doing is working. Keep going. And all of these signs of progress I just listed mean much more than a stupid number on the scale. There should never be a situation where what the scale has to say should mean more to you than these kinds of wins. If you were to completely take the scale out for a second and all you had to focus on were these signs of progress and you were seeing them, your confidence would be up and you'd be feeling great. But then if you added the scale back in and it says a number you're not necessarily happy with, the confidence you experience should not deflate just because of that one thing that doesn't even really matter because there's so many other factors at play and it's so finicky. When you step on the scale and it says a higher number than you expected, you should not freak out and start planning an extra long cardio session that day to try and burn it off so the next day you can see a lower number. Instead, your brain should go, interesting. The scale is up 2 pounds from yesterday. What phase of my cycle am I in? How did I sleep last night? Did I eat later in the evening? Did I eat saltier foods or something that inflamed or bloated me? And if you can pinpoint the reason behind the scale fluctuating up a little bit, fine, good for you. And if not, oh well, could be due to various reasons. And as long as it's not consistently going up and up and up over an extended period of time, and as long as you're not experiencing extreme bloating and inflammation or pain that could be potentially the cause of eating something that doesn't sit right with you, you're fine. You're good. The scale is going to go back down after a bit. And then at some point, we'll have days that it fluctuates back up and then it goes back down. We don't need to stress over the inconsistencies we see on a daily and on a weekly basis. The scale doesn't tell the whole story. It really doesn't. So we can't make it the one thing we look to determine whether we're making progress or not. Again, I am not at all against the scale. I am against the level of power that we give it over us and our emotions, our confidence, and how we feel about ourselves. If you are going to weigh yourself, which I do recommend that you do as one piece of data, you really want to be doing it at least 3 times a week to get an average of your week. If you weigh in once a week, you could get really lucky and weigh in on a great day, and the scale could say 120.7. I don't know. But then the next week, you could weigh in on a really bad day when you're in your luteal phase and you had a little bit more salt the day before. Maybe you had a little more water to drink, didn't sleep that great the night before, and the scale says it's 122.5. And now we're freaking out because we gained almost 2 pounds. No, you didn't. You weighed in once a week and had normal fluctuations on the scale. So I recommend weighing in at least 3 days a week so that you can take the average of those numbers for a little bit more accurate of an idea of where you're at. But ultimately, it's just one little piece of information that we can use to help us in this journey. It does not give the whole story. And my last piece of advice, don't weigh yourself after you've eaten. I spoke with someone recently who was really struggling with an emotional tie to the scale and was confused by the fact that the scale was up like 2.5 pounds from when she first got up that morning after having breakfast. You just ate. You now have more food and water inside of your body. The scale is going to be up. I just want so badly for everyone to stop viewing their weight the way that they do. Because once you understand how much it changes and all of these other factors that play into it, that number becomes so trivial. And if you're freaking out over the scale being up a little bit after just eating, that is a really unhealthy relationship with the scale and it has to stop. All of these other indicators I listed are much more important and much more telling of your progress. Compare having higher energy levels, better cognitive function, ability to handle stress, improved relationship with food, changes in progress photos, and how your clothes are fitting to seeing the scale decrease by half a pound. I mean, really? To me, there is no comparison. What the heck does half a pound mean? It seems so insignificant when you look at all the other things going on. So start focusing on these non scale wins every day and don't allow the scale to be the determining factor on how you feel about the progress you are making.